Hey guys, so these problems are not really difficult. You just need to understand the process behind what you're doing. And the one thing I want to point out to you is this very first video that I'm recording is how you're going to build your what I call your roadmap. Okay. So the big part of these problems is that you need to figure out where you are, and then you need to figure out what unit or where you want to get to. Okay, so there are certain rules that you can always follow. Anytime that you are converting from grams to mole, you are going to use the molar mass. And anytime that you are converting from moles to atoms, you're going to use Avogadro's number. Okay, so just so we can rehash, right? What is molar mass? Molar mass basically is a number that tells you how many grams 1 mole of a substance weighs. And you can find that information on your periodic table. So for example, if we were to pick an element of, let's go with cobalt. Okay, so for cobalt, if you look on the periodic table, that number should tell you that the molar mass of cobalt is 58.93, right, grams per mole. Basically, what this means is that 1 mole of cobalt equals 58.93 grams. Okay, so this should look very familiar to you from the notes that you've taken. This kind of looks like a conversion factor to me, right? On the video that I showed you guys, I kept telling you guys that your conversion factors equal 1. You can use it in any orientation. I think it was a little unclear in the video, so I'm going to show you. I'm going to take this number and I'm going to convert it to my conversion factor, okay? So I'm going to end up with 1 mole of cobalt over 58.93 grams. Now, the reason why your conversion factors equal 1 is because, remember, you can switch around the numerator and denominator depending on what you're trying to, what unit you're trying to get rid of and what unit you're moving to, right? So essentially, you could use this same conversion factor like this, with grams of cobalt on the top and moles of cobalt on the bottom, okay? Since these conversion factors equal each other because they both equal 1, right? If you were to cancel them, mole, mole, gram, gram, you would have a value of 1, right? 58.93 divided by 58.93 gives you 1. Okay, so that's why you're able to use them interchangeably. Okay, the same can be said for Avogadro's number, right? So Avogadro's number basically tells you that 1 mole of, let's say, an element or a substance, right, equals 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. Okay, now if you remember in the video when we talked about Avogadro's number, I told you there were a couple of other terms that you could use instead of atoms that mean the same thing. First one is molecules. The third one is going to be particles. If you see any of these 3 terms, they are referring to Avogadro's number. Okay, so I want to make sure that you're not confused about that. So let's use the same example that we just had, right? We were talking about cobalt. So 1 mole of cobalt equals 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. Okay, so let's write that like we did before, like a conversion factor. So I have 1 mole of cobalt over 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. And because I can use my conversion factor with either the moles on top or the moles on the bottom, you're going to write the other conversion factor. So that is going to be 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. And that is all going to be over 1 mole of cobalt. Don't forget your units, right? So these are the two conversion factors that you can use to go from moles to atoms. Depending on which way you're going is going to tell you which way to put your conversion factor. Okay, just like above, atoms of cobalt, moles of cobalt, moles of cobalt, 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd divided by 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd, guess what? Equals 1. Okay, that's why they say that you can use them interchangeably, because they both equal 1. Okay, hopefully that clears that up. The next video I'm going to record will be some problems that you guys had to do, and we'll talk about how to use this roadmap. In terms of notation, normally before I do a problem, I will lay out my roadmap at the top or next to the actual problem. So this is the way that I always make the notation. If I'm going from grams to mole, I'm going to use molar mass. And if I'm going from moles to atoms, I'm going to use Avogadro's number. Okay, so pay attention to that because I will be using that notation in your upcoming videos. Hopefully that cleared some things up. I know there were some students that were confused. All right, bye.